Welcome to the Stay Paid podcast, where we help agents and entrepreneurs master the latest business trends to unlock growth and create a life of freedom. Brought to you by Reminder Media.
Our guest today is Sheila Reddy. Sheila is a former healthcare management professional who made a bold pivot into real estate, founding her own real estate company, Mosaik, a new technology platform offering workflow management, a client experience engine, and advanced analytics. Mosaik's wish list-based search engine allows users to find properties based upon requested features or conditions. Sheila, welcome to Stay Paid.
Thanks so much for having me, Josh. Thanks so much for having me, Luke. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's exciting to have you here. I was able to hear you speak at the BAM conference, which you did a phenomenal job. And I've been hearing and learning about your product, Mosaik, for a while now. And I think it's really applicable to the real estate industry. So I wanted to get you on the show. You do a lot of sponsoring of BAM like we do. So there's kind of a community there and synergy there that we have. I would love to start though, because you are, Eric, the broke agent, describes you as one of the smartest people he knows, which I can, as I've heard you speak and I've kind of done some research on you, I can quickly see that. But I have a question for you. Why would you choose to go from healthcare, which seems to be a booming space and awesome, to a bold, like Josh said, a bold pivot into real estate, where the real estate market feels like, oh my gosh, just turmoil, upside down. Like, why would you want to get into real estate as a founder and build this company, Mosaik?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for the kind words. I will try my best to live up to them here today. But so it's interesting because Mosaik is really kind of the convergence of two parallel paths that were happening in my life. Right out of school, I got into the healthcare world, hospital management specifically, and climbed the corporate ladder in that space. But as that was all going on, and even while I was still in school, I actually had started dabbling in real estate. So not full-time or not professionally, but just kind of small time investing, a few flips, a few rentals here and there. It was kind of on the heels of like the 2008 financial crisis. So it was a time in real estate where there was an ability to get in at a younger age than compared to anywhere, any other time in history. And so it was just made a little bit more accessible to me at that point from a price point perspective. So I was always doing a little bit of real estate as my career in healthcare was progressing, and worked with a few different agents, had a lot of different experiences in that realm. Like I had a cross-country move, was buying and selling as, on a personal level, on an investing level. So it was.
Did the agents do a good job? I just have to ask, did they do a good job, or is it?
Yeah, I had a couple really phenomenal agents. And for the most part, I'd say the agents that I worked with were pretty solid.
Okay.
But in the back of my mind, I was always like keeping this mental list of just points of friction that I was experiencing. And it was largely, when I go back and peel back the layers of that onion, it was more so byproducts of like systems and what agents had access to relative to like the agent themselves. So Mosaik was just always this like back of the mind, just kind of list of personal problems I was trying to solve, right, as I was going through these different journeys. And so, a few years ago, I was kind of at a point in my healthcare career where I had gone as far as I could go at the company that I was at. And I really had to make a decision of, do I double down and maybe pivot to a large organization or take on more verticals, or do I make a big change? And I had always thought that I would get back to doing real estate in a more kind of permanent full-time capacity. That's always what I really enjoyed. Healthcare was something that I learned a lot from, got a lot of great experience from, but it was something that I kind of fell into straight out of school and not necessarily something I was inherently passionate about. So I decided to, take a leap of faith or make the bold pivot as Josh described it, and ended up leaving the world of healthcare. I was actually going to take a little bit of time off and do kind of like a eat, pray, love sort of thing. But this was like early 2020. So you can pretty much like imagine how that went. I was living in downtown Chicago at the time. So I was pretty much just locked in my condo for like a year.
Great time to decide to start a business.
Exactly. So it ended up being a great opportunity, though, a blessing in disguise, to just like really sit down and map out like what I wanted Mosaik to be and kind of what I wanted to do in the space, and have been doing it ever since. So that's how I ended up here.
Was the pain point with dealing with the agents? I just know my pain point, what my pain point has been, which is the way that they handle inspection and they handle the documents. And it's like, feels like, my experience felt like it's last minute. You don't know what you're signing, what you're getting. You're getting it through a DocuSign system. So there's no explanation. And I know agents have improved since my time of buying my house years ago, but that's how it felt. And so the frustration, and I told my brother Steven this because we buy a lot of investment properties, and investment might be a little bit different because of you got to move on the deal immediately when the deal pops up. But it felt like last seconds, oh gosh, you need me to notarize this thing right now? You need me, like, what the heck? Is that what your frustration was? And is that what led to Mosaik?
It was some of it. Mosaik really spans three key pillars: search, transaction management, and then post-closing client retention. So there was definitely pain points in each of those areas that I experienced that we've subsequently tried to solve in terms of empowering agents to deliver those solutions at scale. But I think what you're referencing, absolutely experienced that. Actually had some of those last minute, oh, this needs to be notarized, I didn't realize, or you need the wet signatures on this.
You're like, what do you expect me to drop my day right now and just go notarize?
Exactly. I've had those 11th hour fire drills. I don't know that I've had a deal that didn't have them. Maybe few exceptions, but yeah, absolutely. That was a big part of, what we've tried to solve from a transaction management side, digitally anyway, through Mosaik. But a big part of like those pain points was not knowing really like what's going to come next. It's funny. I'm originally from Southern California, moved to Chicago for a while, back when I was in the healthcare space. And when I was buying my condo out in Chicago, it was certainly not my first rodeo. I was, of course, new to, the city and the Illinois market and, this concept of like downtown condos and that sort of thing. But in terms of just like a real estate transaction, was far from my first. And I remember the agent I worked with at that time, his assistant, when we went under contract, sent me this like Google Doc. And it was just, it was color coded. It was something like red means something's overdue or at risk. Black means it's coming up. I think like some other color if it was in progress, something like that. And it was just like, one page, dates of what was going to happen and when. And then they just go in and update the colors. And there's a couple times where, I had a lot of other stuff going on in my life at the time, just professionally and with the relocation, that, I wasn't always able to just be super dialed in. So I just go onto that sheet and kind of see where things were at and send questions if I had them. And I remember like my mind being blown and feeling like, wow, this is the first time I like actually have somewhat of an idea of like what is coming next. And that's not to say there weren't other points of friction that we've, addressed in other parts of Mosaik, but from a transaction side, that was probably the most like clear one that I had. And then I remember thinking to myself, because this wasn't that long ago, it was probably like 2018 timeframe. So I remember thinking to myself, I am this excited about a color-coded Google Doc. Like the bar for transparency anyway was not really that high at that point. So
it makes so much sense because the industry, or I should say the consumer's view on a real estate agent is that they don't do much and that they stick a yard sign in the yard. They maybe hold an open house, call a few people, and they get a massive paycheck. That tends to be a standard assumption on a real estate agent, which is why you always have a little bit of disdain or lack of respect for the real estate industry. So Mosaik is all about, from what I understand, it does a lot of things, but you can showcase to people, you can give your client basically a visual into what is happening during the transaction and everything you're doing for them as an agent.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you think about other industries, even ones like real estate that are complex, high stakes, high financial component to it, if you've got a financial advisor, you probably have a portfolio you can log into, and you may not know, exactly like why they picked a certain stock or that sort of thing unless you ask, but you can more or less see what's happening and if they're making trades on your behalf and how that's moving. Coming from the healthcare world, like when I started my career in healthcare, most organizations, if you wanted as a consumer and as a patient, if you wanted a copy of your medical record, you had to like call a number, and then hopefully you had access to a fax machine because they'd fax it to you in like 10 to 15 business days, or you'd go pick it up. And now you go get your blood work done, and like a day later you can access your lab results. And that doesn't mean you're not going to talk to your physician and have them interpret those for you, but you have that transparency, you have that visibility, and you have kind of respect for that autonomy, because at the end of the day, if it's your blood work, it's your body. If it's your financial assets, it's your life savings, right? And so similarly with real estate, it's the consumer's transaction at the end of the day. So, what we try to do at Mosaik is really offer that same experience on the transaction side of, as an agent, you have all these productivity tools within Mosaik on the transaction side to make that more efficient for yourself. But really, you have this ability to bring the client in and let them see kind of what is it that they need to do next, or what are the key dates that are coming up, or to the extent as an agent you want to share, what is it that you're working on? Because that does a few different things. It one just showcases the value that the agent's bringing, because transactions are inherently complex, but it also just meets that consumer expectation because they're already getting that in every other industry. They have the ability to see what's going on.
Yeah, it's so true.
And so
even with making a Domino's pizza, you know what's going on.
Got the pizza tracker.
Yeah, he got the.
It's in the oven.
It's funny because I feel like the industry has been talking about the pizza tracker for years and years and years, and I think a lot of the reason like we don't have this like a universal tracker that's been adopted across the industry is because I think like we were pursuing the wrong thing as an industry. I think a lot of people thought that the reason the consumer likes the pizza tracker so much is because it's simple and easy, right? I can see when my pizza's in the oven, my pizza's on the way. But I think that's maybe where there was a misstep. It's less so about the simplicity. The simplicity is just a byproduct of the fact that there's only so many steps that go into making a pizza and delivering it. What people really like about it and what it is that makes it so powerful is less so the simplicity and more so just the transparency. Because now if I know my pizza is like 15 minutes away, I'm going to make an informed decision about whether I'm going to like start snacking out of my refrigerator.
Yeah, exactly.
To get here.
Yep.
Or I don't have to call and ask where it is. Like it's going to save me that effort unless like it said it delivered and it doesn't show up. I only have to call in extreme scenarios. Whereas, 10, 20 years prior, you had no idea what was happening or when it would arrive. And so I think there's, been a lot of like discourse about this pizza tracker. And I think a lot of people have tried to achieve that in terms of bringing that simplicity to a transaction. But transactions are inherently complex and they're inherently unique. And I think it's less about trying to simplify it for the consumer and more about just bringing them into the complexity, not in a way that makes them like do the work that they're paying to be done, but in a way that empowers them to understand what's happening. It's the same way if you go to get like a surgery, your surgeon's probably going to walk you through what it is he's going to do when you're in the OR. And if there's a complication or if something goes wrong, he's going to fix it. But when you come out of it, he's not just going to say everything's fine. He's going to walk you through, hey, what was the complication? What did we do to solve that? And then how does that impact your recovery or subsequent next steps? So I think it's really bringing that same level of transparency and information to the consumer in real estate.
It is. It's a great way to kind of say what your product is. It's like the Domino's pizza tracker of real estate in a good way. Like it really adds that clarity for the client. And yes, it's, I wouldn't say necessarily simple, but I think your visuals are done really, really well from what I've seen with the actual platform. I want to pick your brain selfishly, like switch gears as you're a founder entrepreneur. And I'm curious to you, what has been the biggest challenge of trying to get your messaging out to this industry? And what have you found? Because I think a lot of people can gain from this. If you're a new agent coming into a market, if you're just getting started, like how have you thought about how we get the word out and what has worked for you, what hasn't? And I feel like you guys crush it with your ads. Your ads are freaking hilarious. The video ads you guys do, it's just phenomenal storytelling. So everybody, if you guys haven't seen Mosaik's ads, just go to YouTube and Google Mosaik's ads. They are hilarious. They're really great. But can you share with me, like, what's been the challenge and how have you learned of how to bring a message to market?
Yeah. Wow. This is, I feel like this is such a layered question and layered set of answers too, because I don't know that there's really been like one thing as far as like a challenge or lesson learned or what's worked. It's really just been this combination of, we try something and then it doesn't quite work how we think it will, and then just like tinkering and refining. I actually was just at the 1,000-watt brand and marketing summit last week and was able to share some of those lessons learned. So this ended up being good timing because I'm coming off the heels of trying to distill all of that. But I would say like, I guess like the two things that have been challenges and lessons learned along the way. I think the first was just for me, it was like a mindset shift in terms of thinking about our marketing as like experiments that we're running and like a hypothesis we're trying to prove and just taking the data as it comes and understanding where to refine and tinker it. I think early on, I was always like trying to hit like a home run with a marketing campaign and be like, oh, if we run this ad, we're going to be flooded, right, with customers, or this is like going to be the one thing that like really just lights like everything, lights everything up. And in reality, like marketing, I think never really quite works that way. It's like an accumulation of all of these little things that you're doing both consistently, but then also refining as you go. So I'd say like the biggest challenge wasn't inherently one thing. It was just really trying to adopt that mindset and that structure. And once we started doing it that way, things really started to shift for us momentum wise from a marketing perspective. So even the ads that you're referencing, like we run a lot of them on like meta ads, and it was a lot of trial and error to like get those working. And we'd start and then like we wouldn't see the results. And so we would just stop for like a few months and not even touch meta ads. And it wasn't until we just started like consistently doing it and tinkering and refining and finding the right people to help us with that those started to show results. And then I'd say the other thing was just kind of following the zeitgeist of sorts. Like we've always been about client experience. That's the core of what we've done from the very beginning. We inherently do other things and bring value in other forms, like the ability to consolidate some of your tech stack and the analytics that come from having, these different pillars in one place. And I would say like early in our journey of going to market, people were still coming off of like the boom times. And there was less inclination to really like learn and listen to the importance of the client experience. So early on, a lot of folks just wanted to hear like, how can we consolidate logins for them? Or how can we, our productivity tools make them more efficient? And then, cue the big lawsuits and then the NAR settlements and, all these headlines that start hitting the newspapers. And we started to see this really palpable shift where now like a lot of the agents who are coming to us for demos or asking us questions, or even the ones that we were already working with, now we're starting to prioritize like that client experience more, starting to realize how powerful like referrals and repeat business and that sort of thing can be. So we saw this like significant shift. So some of it was just, even though our message and our core values have consistently stayed the same, we've had to be like responsive to what was top of mind for people. And so I think that's something even outside of prop tech, like just as agents too, it's, revisiting your marketing and to understand if like that is aligned with whatever like the topical things that are, consumers are thinking about, whether it's aligned with that. A lot of the times we see people like still marketing off of this concept of we'll help you find your dream home, but we're like living in a time where some buyers don't even know if they can afford to buy a house, let alone like their dream home. So
it's literally a dream. Right.
Exactly. So that was like, I'd say the challenges and like the lessons learned is just being like agile in those different ways.
Well, speaking of like top of mind, what everyone's thinking about right now, obviously AI, you've partnered, I think recently with an AI platform. How are you incorporating that, or how are you seeing AI being used?
Yeah. So we use AI in a few different ways, sometimes through partnerships, sometimes through our own models and that sort of thing. But so we use AI. I know that's such a hot topic, right? Like everyone's talking about AI. Every company's trying to,
every day there's a new tool or something to play with. Yeah.
As using AI. Our whole strategy to AI has been less about AI for AI's sake. So it's less about just putting in, chatbots and these type of things to say we have AI, and more about, where are like incremental points in the process where AI can make something a little bit better. So, for us, like on the property search side, we do a whole like ranking system of properties. So rather than just filtering things in and out. So if I say I want to be 20 minutes from work, we don't want to necessarily not show the consumer a property that's 24 minutes away from work, but has everything else they're looking for. So we've kind of moved away from just this like binary filters that you see in most search portals and towards a more like property analysis based search experience. And so, we use AI for components of that, like analyzing images to see, color the kitchen cabinets, is the view obstructed, things that might not be easy to get out of MLS data itself. And so like similarly, we inject it into certain points of the process versus trying to just do AI for AI's sake. We kind of look at it as like a tool more than anything else.
That is really smart to analyze the images and come up with features based on that.
Smart.
I learned I can upload a picture of my food and it'll tell me the calories.
Are you serious?
I'm curious how accurate that is, because like, how does it know if you put half a stick of butter in versus like a teaspoon of butter?
That I don't know about the stick of butter, but it did know my salad had dressing on it, because it said based on the shine from the leaves, it's probably a light vinaigrette.
Crazy. Yeah. No way. Yeah, was it a vinaigrette?
It was, yeah. I showed it to Dave. He's like, oh, that looks right.
That
Right.
is, yeah, it's just, I like your view on AI. It truly is a tool to help you be more efficient. It's not AI for AI's sake.
Yes.
It is AI to enhance a process. Like we have AI in our company right now, but one of the main, we have it for chat from a Zendesk perspective. We use that company that has it built in, but we're mainly using it to process emails. So we have hundreds and hundreds of emails that come in a day from clients, and there tends to be like a couple different buckets, things like deadline moves for their magazines and some other things. And you can kind of easily bucket those into workflows. I like how Salesforce thinks about AI. They tend to think of it in terms of flow, in terms of like workflows, where they go, well, what is the workflow you're doing? So for an example would be like our magazine, adding a recipient to your list is a workflow. Is like you want to add, it's just a flow that you go through. So AI could handle that. So you could change like we're working on changing our phone prompts to be able to where right there an AI agent can help you add a name to your list, or a text, number can help you add a name to your list, stuff like that. But it's through that same lens that you're thinking about it. It's like you don't have this overall agent that's doing everything for you yet. You just have components of your system being enhanced.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that approach, at least for where AI is today, is, it's injecting it into those critical.
Does it make you nervous where it's going tech-wise?
I feel like I should have like a more philosophical answer on this for you guys.
It makes me nervous. I don't know why. I'm just nervous.
Luke brings it up every day.
I'm nervous Nancy over here.
I think AI is one of those things, like most technology innovations, where there's like this potential to do so many amazing things with it. And that same way, there's this potential for it to be abused. But I think that, I think we're so early in this journey that, all the different ways that it could be used in both cases, good and bad, still remain fully unseen. So
are you experimenting it with your coding? Like, do you have the co-pilots for your coders or whoever you use?
So our development team does use it.
Really, same with ours.
But I think purely from a just, increasing efficiency or just kind of helping brainstorm a solution sort of thing versus actually, I know there's this new trend of vibe coding or whatever it's called, where
I haven't heard of this.
Actually creating little mini apps and mock-ups and things like that using AI and stuff. We don't really use it in that way. We use it more to just increase the efficiency of our existing team. And then also I think, tools like ChatGPT can be really helpful just as thought partners to just kind of help you unblock yourself on certain problems.
Agree with you 100%. Because the issue is, Tom, our VP of tech, told me he's been using it and trying to figure out, can we use it for tech and all that stuff. And he goes, the problem is it's wrong sometimes. Mm-hmm. And then it's
confidently wrong.
Exactly. That is a great way to say it. It is confidently wrong. And so the problem becomes at that point, it's I always make this example with accounting. It's accounting, you have to be 100% right. So if my VP of finance hands me our financial book and it's wrong, right? There's an area that's wrong. The problem is now I don't know if I have to go verify everything, right? And so it's you're not trying to be, what do you call it? Overbearing or anything like that. But you have to tell your people, hey, you can't be wrong. And it's not because I don't allow imperfection. It's because if this happens, then we have to doubt everything. And I've seen ChatGPT and what's happening in coding and stuff. Similarly, it's shoot, even though it makes me more efficient and it's guiding me in this route, I can't be confident that it's actually right. So I have to take the time to verify. So it's still helpful. And it's going to get better. And I've been watching, obviously, Consume with it just like everybody else, of where they think it's going to go. They're predicting by the end of the year, you will have agentic software engineers. So not just engineering from a co-pilot standpoint where it's helping you code, but engineering where you can tell this agentic, bot, hey, go code this. And it actually has the ability based upon requirements and all that stuff to work. All right. Last question for you. I feel like we're just getting started, but I see we're already almost 30 minutes in, is what's been the most frustrating thing about the real estate industry to you? And you can't hold back, Sheila. You got it. What's the most frustrating thing? If it's really bad, we'll clip this as the thumbnail, No, I'm just kidding.
All right. I would say, that's a good question because there's so many different frustrating things.
That's the best answer. Correct.
As well. So, but I think that's the case with any industry. I think that, From what I've seen, especially, with so much of what we do being focused on the client experience, but delivering that through like agents, we believe that people, are not going to want to push a button and buy a $500,000 house. Like, it's a really nuanced financial and emotional decision. People want to work with experts. They want a human walking them through that process. But just given how much digital convenience we're used to, people are not going to sacrifice digital convenience for the human touch. They really want both. And so, like, that's always been our philosophy, is how do we provide that digital touch that agents can then use, run with, to deliver a more just comprehensive client experience end to end. And, this isn't to say that any of this is inherently wrong, but I think just coming into the industry with that client focus, so much of like what you hear in terms of industry, like rhetoric and training, and like so much of what I think historically the industry has focused on is like lead gen and lead conversion, which is
Yes.
an important part of any business. But, coming from like the healthcare industry, for example, if most physicians, their first couple of years in practice, they're going out there and they're building their practices if they're independent in the way agents are. But usually after like a couple of years, you've got wait lists and you've got, hey, my practice is full. Because the focus is still heavily on like the craft, right? It's delivering good care, delivering good treatment, and letting those patients then grow your practice organically. And so I think in real estate, there are some agents who do that, who have built really strong referral repeat based businesses, who really focus more on like serving clients and delivering value to clients over just generating leads. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do lead based stuff. That's an important pillar of every business. But I do think there's a large portion of the industry where like that's the sole focus, is how do you generate leads? And then, okay, I got this lead to convert, so now I'm going to do kind of the minimum on serving them, and then just try to go generate more leads and convert more leads. And that has been, I think, a little bit of a paradigm shift. And I think we're starting to see the agents that we talk to, there's people who've already been doing the client-centric approach. And then there's people who are starting to see the importance of that, especially as there's all this shift and change in the world. But it has been something where, it kind of feels like there was like a little bit of a learning curve or a paradigm shift in terms of just thinking about it that way. And I think it's because so much of what's been out there content-wise and so forth is just really about leads. And a lot of times people forget that there's a whole other half of that equation, which is, doing a really great job for the client. And if you do that, your business inherently grows, and it inherently grows in a more profitable way, because now you're not spending all this money trying to generate the lead. You're not spending all this time trying to build trust. You're already working with people who have heard that you're, great, that you're a great agent. So, that's something where I think we've just had to invest more into kind of helping outline that and making that value proposition clear than I maybe originally thought we would have. But it's also been, good in other ways, in that we're just seeing that start to become more and more, I guess, known, if that makes sense.
Love it.
Super well said.
Makes sense. Sheila, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Super impressive what you are doing with Mosaik.
Thank you guys for having me.
Before we close out, let people know how they can connect with you or learn more about Mosaik.
Yeah, so you can visit our website. It's mosaik.io, mosaik.io. And then I'm available, anytime to connect with anyone. If anyone has any questions or wants to brainstorm on anything client experience related, whether you're using Mosaik or not. And that's just my email, which is Sheila, SHEILA @mosaik.io.
Love it. Thank you again so much for coming on. And thank you all for listening. To dive deeper into this episode, get the links that Sheila mentioned there, as well as the video. You can go to staypaidpodcast.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, go to YouTube, give us a like on the video, and subscribe to the Reminder Media channel. If you want to get hold of me or Luke, you can email us at podcast@remindermedia.com. And of course, you can follow us on social media as well. We are at Stay Paid Podcast. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Joshua Stike.
Guys, I'm Luke Acree. Sheila, thank you. You did not disappoint. Guys, go check out Mosaik. It really is phenomenal. I've interacted with a lot of clients that are using it, and they love it. And I think it is something that is missing, especially the stuff that happens during the transaction. I think there has been also, to add on to this whole focus on lead gen, we've always said the agent is the brand, but really it's your service that is the brand. It's like, that's your product. Like, that is what the market is going to know and remember you by. And there isn't a ton of focus on the actual service of the client and what they experience from end to end. And so I think you should check out Mosaik for that. But my action item for you is this, because all of you could do this, whether you use this Mosaik or not, is you can do the whole, how do I showcase to my client during the transaction, what is going on and what's upcoming for them. And you heard Sheila said she was so impressed with a Google Doc that had color coding system. I mean, think about that. That's the bar. The bar is low. I mean, do you even have a Google Doc where you're preparing clients of what to expect and what's coming next? Do you at least have that, a Google form? Because, obviously I would encourage you to go check out Mosaik because they can do it for you and it's going to be better. But ultimately you can do it with things like that. Are you even doing that? Do you even know what the client experience is? Because you can't improve upon that which you haven't defined. Remember the difference between top producers and mediocre producers in every business. It's top producers take action. Take action on that today.